This is Valley News Live at noon.
As Hurricane Ian begins to approach Florida, already changes are being seen in Tampa Bay. Take a look here. Water once stood here in parts of Tampa Bay. As Hurricane Ian approaches the area, water from Tampa Bay and other bodies of water have been completely sucked out. The massive hurricane is expected to make landfall this afternoon. The storm is growing stronger as it closes in on Florida's west coast. The powerful storm is packing top sustained winds of 155 miles per hour, making it just shy of a Category 5 storm. As Jason Allen reports, Ian is already causing damage even before it makes landfall.
Hurricane Ian flooded streets in Key West before dawn as the powerful storm barreled toward Florida's southwest coast, bringing with it strong winds and heavy rain across the state.
It is going to have major impacts in terms of wind, in terms of rain, in terms of flooding. So this is going to be a nasty day, 2 days.
Be prepared. Storm warnings are real. The evacuation notices are real. The danger is real.
The storm damaged neighborhoods, including in Pembroke Pines, north of Miami. In Davie, Florida, residents woke up to downed trees and other debris. More than 2.5 million people were under mandatory evacuation orders, but by law, no one could be forced to leave.
I urge Floridians who have made the decision to shelter in place, to stay indoors, and stay off the roads.
The National Hurricane Center warned of storm surges, raising the level more than 12 feet for some coastal areas. Officials in Charlotte County braced for a direct hit.
We are beginning to see sustained tropical storm force winds, which means emergency crews from all of our emergency response agencies have been pulled from the road and are no longer able to respond.
There are already reports of power outages, and officials with Florida Power and Light warned people in Ian's path. Electricity could be out for days. The state and FEMA say they are ready to help as soon as the storm moves out.
We have moved in a variety of generators of all sizes and types.
And the U.S. Coast Guard urged people to be cautious as it answered several calls for help this morning from people in Key West caught in the storm. Jason Allen, CBS News, Tampa.
Governor DeSantis said the state has 30,000 linemen and 7,000 National Guard troops to aid in the recovery efforts. Dozens of people were evacuated and 2 others were taken to a hospital last night after a possible tornado caused by Hurricane Ian damaged an apartment complex in Delray Beach, Florida. Multiple vehicles and buildings were damaged. Rescue crews were deployed and 35 people ended up being evacuated. Another chilly start to our day, but the temperatures are climbing. Let's check in with meteorologist Jim Gash to see just how warm we'll get today.
Hi, Jillian. Yeah, today has been chilly, but first we're going to take a look at Ian some more. We see that visible satellite really showing the strength of that storm, and taking a closer look at the eye itself. It's starting to clear out a little bit more as well, which means that the storm is still intensifying as it moves towards land. There's also been quite a bit of lightning in that eye wall, which again is another sign of intensification. Taking a look at the satellite and radar of the storm, those winds on the eastern flank of the eye wall are a bit stronger than those on the western flank, which as it moves inland, it's going to those greater impacts are going to be on that side of the storm, including possibly 12 to 18 foot storm surge for places in Port Charlotte and Fort Myers Beach. As it moves inland, it's going to downgrade a little bit to a Category 3 as it moves across the Florida Peninsula, where it will reemerge out over ocean into the Atlantic Ocean, which it then could curve back and impact Augusta and areas near the border between Georgia and South Carolina. But for here in Fargo, we'll continue to see those partly cloudy skies as our temperatures increase to about 65 degrees by this afternoon. Coming up in just a little bit, I will bring you your full Fargo hour-by-hour forecast.
All right, looking forward to it, Jim. Thanks. New information on a train accident in downtown Fargo. Fargo police have identified the man who died after being hit by a train around midnight last Friday. They say the victim is 35-year-old Matthew Caleb Scott, who is not from the area. Police say when they arrived on the scene near Cowboy Jack's, Scott was dead. There are no signs of foul play. Fargo's police chief says last week's large police presence at a South Side home was part of a larger federal investigation. That, he says, will have a significant impact on crime and safety in Fargo. David Zabalski says details won't be released, though, for another 30 to 45 days. It happened a week ago today near 7th Street and 9th Avenue, which is close to Hawthorne Elementary School. People living in that area saw a helicopter hovering over the neighborhood, several K-9 teams on the ground, and heard 2 flashbang explosions. The Cavalier County Sheriff's Department wants your help identifying these burglars. Authorities say the 2 were involved in a string of break-ins around the Munich area. If you have any information on these 2 or what happened, you're asked to call local authorities. We could hear later today who was involved in a death investigation in Becker County. Deputies were called yesterday to a home outside of Detroit Lakes on County Road 6. They found the bodies of a man, a woman, and 2 dogs. Sheriff's investigators and the State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension were on the scene investigating through the day and into the night.
Obviously, it's a tragic event, and we feel for the family and friends of the deceased.
The Ramsey County Medical Examiner is conducting autopsies to positively ID the victims and to determine the cause of death. The sheriff says this incident appears to be an isolated event and he doesn't believe the public is in danger. New at noon, a well-known East Grand Forks diner is now closed. Joe's Diner posted on Facebook saying, quote, "It is with a heavy heart that I am announcing the permanent closure of all Joe's Diner locations, as well as the Wake and Bacon Cafe." The owner said with the rising costs of product and supply chain issues, they had to make the tough decision. Joe's Diner previously had a run-in with Minnesota authorities during the height of COVID-19 restrictions when bars and restaurants were ordered to shut down and do takeout only. Joe's Diner opened for a brief time and found themselves facing potential license suspensions from that decision. The owner and the state came to an agreement and the diner closed for in-person service. Well, have you seen this video going viral? A North Dakota bow hunter who was looking for a white-tailed deer got the surprise of her life. Look at that. Brianne Zeit said she was hunting southwest of a Minot when curious moose approached her blind. She said she was scared but tried to stay calm while taping the 2-minute encounter on her phone. It shows the moose poking its nose inside the blind twice before moseying off. Coming up at noon, ice is shrinking at record rates, why scientists say the world's glaciers are quickly disappearing. But next, weather to plan your day.